الله أكبر. لا إله إلا الله.
بسم الله والحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونتوب إليه ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا. من يهد الله فهو المهتد ومن يضلله فلن تجد له وليا مرشدا. والصلاة والسلام على محمد النبي الخاتم الأمين وعلى آله وأهل بيته وأصحابه الميامين وعلى من اتبعوا بإحسان إلى يوم الدين. We always start a khutbah by acknowledging our gratitude to God, who has made humanity and made human beings but as if splinters of divinity, as if flashes of divinity. From God we are, and to God we return. And our essence and our being is divine. And we ask Allah to bless and pray upon the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ and upon all the prophets from the time of Abraham to the final prophet in the Abrahamic lines of prophets, Muhammad. And of course we do not forget the family of the Prophet and the companions of the Prophet. Brothers and sisters, the last time I saw you, it was on the occasion of the inauguration of our current President, Donald Trump. And as usually happens in situations like this, the protesters are gone, public affairs move on, people become distracted with their events, but the reality lived by human beings continues on in a certain undeniable and unwaverable realism to it. So, although the protesters are not here and the little bit of attention given to this matter is not here, the courts are filling up with litigations and lawsuits in which Muslims are targeted, some lawsuits in which I am involved businesses that have decided to put up signs saying no Muslim patrons or Muslims not welcome. The Justice Department has decided not to take a position, and through the offices of the ACLU and depending on the situation, CARE, we filed lawsuits against these businesses. On the US border, again, the ACLU has brought a lawsuit against the second Muslim ban, but it has become the customary practice of US immigration to download whatever is on the phone of Muslims trying to pass through the airport. There's a recent case, or several cases of even Canadian and European citizens who are coming through. Canadian citizens do not need a visa to come to the United States, but they were stopped at the border, their phones downloaded, and because of prayer apps, they were denied entry to the United States, and so on and so forth. And a part that particularly concerns me is the large number of not just states that had already passed anti-Sharia laws, but not because Sharia is going to be implemented in the United States, but because, whether you realize it or not, anti-Sharia laws are used to deny Muslims of their civil liberties. Anti-Sharia laws are used to first establish the fact that Islam equals Sharia, Sharia equals danger, and if Sharia equals danger, then it becomes possible to deny permission to Islamic centers to open up. In several number of states we have lawsuits like that. Muslim burial sites to open up, we have a large number of lawsuits like that. Halal markets or halal businesses to open up, again, all over the United States, there's a very large number of lawsuits. And a growing, an increasing trend to deny employment to Muslims in various types of jobs, whether computer jobs, engineering jobs, some even academic positions. I have several cases involving Muslim security guards being denied on the basis that as Muslims, then they must necessarily believe in Sharia, and since there is a state law that says Sharia is bad, then a Muslim cannot be trusted. My point is that a reality doesn't exist because it is in the newspaper or because there are some people that support us or not support us. The reality is, the truth is that every passing day there are real life consequences to the ignorance that pervades not just our country but the West about Islam and about Sharia. This ignorance has real life material consequences on your brothers and sisters, and quite possibly on you personally and your children and your relatives in due time. there is no question that in part, because of the anti-Sharia, anti-Muslim frenzy, CBI or Homeland Security has started even showing up at schools and arrested parents as they're picking up or dropping off their children because of their undocumented status or expired visas. There is no denying that they have even showed up at domestic flights, people visiting during Christmas or during whatever spring break is coming up, so there's going to be a major clampdown in spring break, where they detain people leaving a flight and demanded to see proof that they are in the country legally. We have had an inordinate number of denials in religious visas, people applying to come to the United States as imams or as religious workers for cause or no cause. And moreover, there is no denying that in several incidents, CPI has showed up at Islamic schools and demanded rosters of, in order to verify which parents are here legally or not legally. All of that has very serious and severe consequences on our lives. And if you have an iota of brain, an iota of morality, an iota of Islam, an iota of Sharia, you will know one thing, that the response cannot be anger. As the Prophet ﷺ once advised a man when he approached him and said, "Teach me." And the Prophet ﷺ told him, "La taghdab," do not become angry, and repeated it several times. Prophet Sulaiman ﷺ, as narrated through our Prophet ﷺ, elaborated, said, "La taghdab fala tarfa sawtan wala yada." Do not become angry, do not raise a hand, and do not raise your voice. And the Sharia that they often talk about, sadly, so many Muslims themselves are not aware that Sharia is based on fundamental moral principles that anchor its moral compass. Or maybe some Muslims forget, so many Muslims forget, that Sharia is anchored on moral, ethical principles that direct its compass. The ahkam of Sharia are derivative and contingent and dependent on these moral and ethical principles. And before someone says, "You're getting too complicated and too philosophical," the type of stuff I've been told before, this simply is the study of Sharia, and if you're Muslim, you should study Sharia. And some of the basic ethical principles of Sharia that we are weaned on as if milk, as babies. I've studied Sharia now 40 years, and I yet to scratch the surface, is the basic principle that the Prophet ﷺ has anchored in the Muslim Ummah: La darar wa la dirar. You do not do harm. You cannot commit harm. You cannot cause harm. And this, of course, is elaborated upon again in not just in the Quran, but in numerous teachings and elaborations by the Prophet ﷺ, إن دماءكم وأموالكم وأعراضكم حرام عليكم بعضكم على بعض, that your blood, your money, your honor is haram, is sanctified. You are one from another. And all those who train in Islamic jurisprudence also learn that الضرر لا يزال بضرر. This is a basic maxim of law, basic principle of moral ethics, that harm cannot be removed by harm. So if you have an iota of intelligence, as I was saying initially, you do not respond to any of this by anger, and there is nothing, and I'll say this very bluntly, and of course, we should all say it very bluntly. There is nothing that the Islamophobes would love more than an angry Muslim that would commit an idiotic and immoral and an un-Islamic act, such as an act of violence or an act of terrorism. Because it is terrorism. If you terrorize people, you are a muharib, and you're not treated very kindly under Islamic law, even more harshly than American law. That is, nothing would be a gift that would allow the public opinion to change immediately, overnight, against all Muslims. And that would enable the Trump administration to issue an executive order placing all of us in internment camps than a terrorist attack by some idiotic and immoral and criminal Muslim that would decide to commit a terrorist attack as a response because they cannot control their anger. الضرر لا يزال بضرر. Harm cannot be removed by harm. نسأل الله يستجب لكم الله يغفر لنا ولكم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والحمد لله رب العالمين وسبحان الله والله أكبر والصلاة والسلام على محمد وعلى آله وأصحابه ومن اتبعوا بإحسان إلى يوم الدين. Brothers and sisters, we Muslims, Muslims around the world, in the age of modernity, age of modernity is a fancy way of saying our age, the day and age we live in, the age after official formal colonialism has ended and indirect unofficial colonialism has begun. In that day and age, Muslims have excelled in producing engineers who engineer structures and board circuits and computers and things like that. And they also have excelled in producing medical doctors that treat the body and do surgeries and fix the heart and transplant kidneys. We have excelled in that. But what is as challenging, if not more challenging, is to produce engineers of the mind. To produce engineers of the mind, those who engineer the intellect, and to produce doctors of the heart and the mind, those who treat the intellect and treat the heart. And when I say Muslims here, I don't mean Muslims who might get money from an Arabian Gulf country, whatever the country is, and open some endowed chair in the name of Prince such and such or King such and such, or some Islamic school in the name of Prince such and such. No, I mean Muslims in the United States through their own domestic, independent, autonomous resources that can respond to Muslim American or Muslim Western needs as, again, if you study Sharia, you know that the premise of Sharia is that it responds to the circumstances where they are, so that the fiqh of Egypt is no good in the United States. There has to be a fiqh of the United States. And that the fiqh of Saudi Arabia is no good in Indonesia. There has to be a fiqh of Indonesia. One fiqh in one country cannot be applied in another. That is just the elementaries, ABCs of Sharia studies. And here, I will say what I have been saying in this community for the past 30 years. Those of you who know me have heard me say this again and again and again. And I will say it until Allah takes me to where people go after death. Because it is, I believe, the truth that Allah has put me here on this earth to bear witness to. And that is, the responsibility is on Muslim of means, Muslims who have the money, Muslims who have the wealth, instead of buying whatever rich people buy, whatever additional cars and additional memberships and whatever private things they join and whatever rich people spend their money on, to build Muslim American institutions that engineer the intellect and that, like doctors treat the body, treat the mind. And not to do so by creating ghetto institutions where the most unqualified or minimally qualified Muslims are hired to pretend like they have an intellectual endeavor. No. To support the best Muslim minds, the most qualified Muslims, the Muslims who have proven themselves in the highest institutions of learning, the Muslims who have competed at the highest institutions of learning and obtained the best grades, to support these Muslims to engineer the intellect and doctor the intellect and heart, so we can respond to the challenge of Islamophobia and anti-Shariaism that is suffocating our lives. As a lawyer, I cannot handle 100, 200, 300, 1,000, 2,000, 3,000, 5,000 cases. And most Muslim attorneys are busy suing car accidents and chasing ambulances and becoming rich. Telling you the truth. But that is an unworkable situation. And as long as Muslims depend on others to come to our help when we are in trouble, or lose their mind and act like idiots and criminals and go blow something up, we will never progress in this world. And Allah will never bless our endeavors. And we will never reach what Sharia demands of us. اللهم أصلح لنا ديننا اللهم أصلح لنا ديننا الذي هو عصمة أمرنا واصلح لنا دنيانا التي فيها معاشنا واصلح لنا آخرتنا التي فيها معادنا واجعل الحياة زيادة لنا في كل خير يا رب واجعل الموت راحة لنا من كل شر. اللهم لا تدع لنا ذنبا إلا غفرته، ولا هما إلا فرجته، ولا كربا إلا نفسته، ولا دينا إلا قضيته يا الله. اللهم انصر الإسلام وأعز المسلمين، وارفع عنا البلاء وغضبك يا الله يا كريم يا رحمن يا رحيم. Allah, forgive us our sins. Allah, forgive the sins of our predecessors. Allah, guide us to something more enlightened and closer to what your message is and closer to what Sharia demands of us, Ya Allah. Allah, educate us in the affairs of our faith and in the affairs of our Sharia so we might come to understand. Allah, remove hardship from upon us and help us satisfy our debts and help heal our ill and sick. God, Ya Rabb, Ya Rahman, Ya Rahim, Ya Kareem, Allahumma salli wa sallim wa barik wa ala Muhammad wa ala alihi wa ashabihi wa tabi ihsanan ila yawm al-din wa aqim as-salat.
Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. Ashhadu an la